Hey guys, it's Jennie with Absolutely Handmade. Decided to go ahead and pop on while we are on our cruise and do the voiceover for this week's video. I hope you guys are having a great week. We are having an amazing bachelorette cruise. So, super excited to show you guys what I did before I left. It was a pretty awesome craft and I hope you enjoy it. Let's jump right into it. So this week we're going to use the casting resin, parts A and B. We're going to use the hidden hollow mold, the toadstool mold. This is the oak leaves and acorns mold. And we're going to mix this up 1-to-1, parts A and B. Once you mix them together, you're going to want to stir for about 30 to 45 seconds. Casting resin sets up within 10 minutes, so you don't want to take too much longer than that, getting it all incorporated. I did cut out part of that, so no, I didn't just do a couple of swirls and then start pouring. And I don't know what was going on this week, guys, but I was pouring all kinds of messy. There was resin pouring everywhere, so when I got done, I got to get out my straight edge and X-Acto knife and kind of clean everything up. Y'all can see there's resin everywhere. I've got to get some better cups. That just is really irritating. So DIY Dark and Decrepit liquid patina is next up. And I found this, I guess it's a hat box lid. It's all made out of wood. It's pretty cool. It's still got the logo on the back. I didn't paint the back because I wanted to leave that intact. I thought it was kind of an awesome little tidbit or surprise on the back. And we're just sealing this all in with the liquid patina, the Dark and Decrepit. Go ahead and paint the whole thing, inside, outside, all around the rim. Then you guys have heard me talk about my Jovi air dry clay. It's been getting kind of dried out, starting to get a little tough to deal with. So this week we're going to roll it out into a flat sheet and use that all at one time. I made that big piece and I was like, need to cut that down. I didn't want the whole inside of that hat box to be air dry clay. So this is where we just start kind of piecing together, shaping. I had a vision in my head and I'm trying to just bring it to fruition. So you guys are going to see me kind of squish and twist and rub those edges down. I would wet down my fingers and kind of rub down the edges as well. Rolled the edge so it looked like a nice natural. Used a cup to flatten it out. None of this is really going to matter because we're going to use a stamp here in just a few minutes to kind of impress what we want on the top of that. Yeah, right here. We're going to use the barnwood stamp. I believe it's barnwood plank stamp, maybe is the full term. You guys know most of us crafters have like little shortened phrases for our products, so barnwood planks. I'll peel that one off. I wanted one that had quite a bit of texture on it because I wanted this to look like a tree trunk is what we're shooting for. So I know we talked about it before. I kind of made mention of what I was thinking I wanted to do this week. And honestly, I hadn't even touched this craft when we did the voiceover for last week's video. So it was all kind of in my head how this was going to go down. And it turned out really cute. We talked about using different things this week. So we're going to use the paints. We're going to use the air dry clay. We're using resin. All kinds of molds. A couple of other little things are going to be thrown in here. But I wanted to make that look like a tree trunk. The idea is to have the right side kind of look like there's a tree trunk sloping in. The left side is going to have, we're going to use transfer. Make it look kind of like a wooded bottom to like a forest bed. Is kind of what we're going for. We're going to use the Type Bond Quick and Thick Put on a nice generous layer because we want it to really stick down to that hat box lid. Wipe it all down. You want to make sure you cover every inch of the surface, or else it's really not going to stick great. So y'all can see I'm putting on a pretty healthy layer here. I get done, and I sped this up, I think times 3 or more, because it was kind of time consuming, but I wanted you to see the process. We're going to take that piece and we're going to flip it. And then we just kind of slide it in place. And it doesn't have to be perfect. All of this is going to be kind of doctored in. We're going to fiddle with it quite a bit before we get done. So now y'all can see I did that impression, or that casting from the Hidden Hollow mold. And I wanted it to kind of sit. I wanted it to look kind of like a little troll door or a fairy door, or however you want to think of it, kind of in the middle of the tree. So need a little bit more air dry clay, so I'm opening up a fresh package. I'm going to roll it out, flatten it out. I don't remember if I ended up adding a little bit more to it or not, but just kept messing with it. Yep, needed a little more. I thought that didn't look like enough. You have to kind of incorporate that one as well, so it doesn't look like there's sections. I didn't mind the section on the bigger piece because it's going to look like, you know, trees have like those little like knotty edges and stuff on them sometimes. So that one was okay. We left it alone. This one, we want to kind of flatten it out. Bring it on down onto what, like a leaf bed layer, the grass level, that type of thing. Kind of took off the edge, mashed it in a little better. Added a little more to the top. And y'all can do this with, with anything, any kind of surface. So if you find anything that's, doesn't even have to be flat. If it had, this actually had, you can see the differences in the wood planks. So there is like a separation. There's a little bit of a hump on one piece, so we were going up and down. Your surfaces don't have to be flat, guys. Get out whatever you can find. Go and thrift. Go and upcycle. Pull stuff that's fixing to land in the landfill and save it. Like, this stuff doesn't have to be garbage. It can be made into beautiful art. So now we're going to lay that door facing, or that doorway, on top of that, so you can actually see the little edge right in the middle. That's where it's going over the 2 different sections of boards. Put that Type Bond Quick and Thick on there again. I love that glue. It holds so fast. You can lay the piece down and then just keep on rocking and rolling. Doesn't take any time at all for it to adhere and then dry. Put that on real good. Go ahead and flip that piece into place as well and piece it together over the first one. That's where I'm taking just one of those water wipes, just kind of smoothing out the surface, making sure we don't have any strange splotches or problems. Smoothing that line into the first piece we did and wiping off some of the glue that got on there. That Dark and Decrepit is a sealer. It's a top coat, whatever you want to call it. More of the barnwood plank. We're going to add more texture. All of that is going to make sense here in just a little bit. But I definitely wanted to make sure and kind of clean my surface as we go. It can have a little imperfection here and there. It's not going to make that big of a difference. But we definitely want to try and clean up the workspace as we go. Now there's plenty of room to add in that little doorway. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use the Type Bond Quick and Thick again. We're going to glue that down on top of the air dry clay. Same thing. Good healthy layer. You're just going to spread that out. And then I just kind of took it and smashed it into the clay so that it's fit tightly in there. And you can see there's a little gap right below the door. We're going to take care of that here in just a few minutes. We'll add a little bit of air dry clay to bulk it up and make it level because we do want all of our pieces to be what they call grounded. So now we're going to use the coal black. We're going to paint all of this air dry clay, that resin piece. We need to seal it all in. And this is where we're going to start adding some dimension to this piece. So we're going to paint the clay and all of those little, I'm using a pointed paintbrush here so that we can really get the paint down into the texture of that air dry clay with the stamp having been pressed into it. When we paint the door, we're going to paint all of it. It's all going to be painted black. And below the door, there's actually like a little, what looks like a pebbly kind of threshold. So we paint that. Want a nice coating on everything. Now, painting with Fusion paint, it is a primer, it's a paint, and it's a top coat. So this is going to seal in your air dry clay. It kind of slows down the drying process and it helps prevent cracking. So in my opinion, the process I've had the most luck with is to put my air dry clay wherever it's headed and go ahead and add some layer of paint. Okay, now we're going to go with Fort York Red, and we're going to paint our mushrooms, just the tops. I wanted a nice, bright, bold red. And it is going to take 2 coats. Y'all know I like 2 coats. Now that air dry clay that you're seeing there that we added to the hat box already, only put 1 coat of paint because it's basically just, it's a base coat. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to layer paint on top of it. If you miss a spot or whatever, that's fine. Here's where we're still going through. We're going to paint all the little mushroom tops. Then we're going to come back with Cozy Beige, the chalk paint from Paint Couture. This is another one of my favorites. I need to use this color more because I really like it. It's a nice neutral yellowy cream. If you don't want the yellow tone, the Farmhouse Linen is a great option. It's also a nice neutral, but I wanted kind of that yellowy tone. I thought that was going to go really well with what we were doing. So I was okay with the Cozy Beige having the little bit of a yellow tint to it. I'm going to paint all the stalks to all the mushrooms with that Cozy Beige, making sure to coat it up real good. It's a chalk paint. It grabs pretty good onto pretty much anything. It's actually a great paint. It's a great base layer paint. If I was wanting to stack paint and I want a similar color, sometimes I'll use a chalk paint first because it holds so well. And then I'll go back over it with the acrylic paints. Now we're going to go with the Fusion Buttermilk Cream. And we're going to paint just that little underside of the mushroom. The little fluting or the little crevices that are right underneath the topper part of the mushroom. Just thought this was kind of a cute look. I know nothing about mushrooms. I don't know if I'm mimicking something that actually happens in nature. I just thought this was pretty. It had a pretty composition to it. In the end, it all works really well together, you'll see. So definitely good paint choices, in my opinion. We'll see if it sells. It's going to go in my shop pretty soon, into my booth. So we're going to paint in all of those little details. And not all the mushrooms had the little underside. There were only a couple of them. So that buttermilk cream is just going to be on a few parts. It's not going to be super in your face or dominant or anything. It's just an added touch. It's nice to add in some extra colors sometimes. Just going to paint that little part. Now we're going to go with the Iron Orchid design, the Franz transfer. This is a great transfer. It's given us a great background. I just kind of trimmed it up, trimmed the piece off that I wanted. It fit perfectly into that space. I'll lay it where we want it. Get the plastic transfer stick out. And then we just start rubbing. And you kind of want to rub over the whole design and then go back and like pick a corner and start peeling it up. You'll see here shortly that's what we do. I wanted it to look almost like a zoomed in picture frame, if that makes sense, or a zoomed in. I always relate it to like a TV show or a movie or something like that. Like it's gonna be zoomed in on this forest floor, and you're gonna have like the little bit of tree creeping in from one side. You're going to have the plants hanging down over the forest bed, and that's what this is. These are those plants drooping down from up above over the little scenery that we are creating. And this was just fun, guys. This doesn't have a theme to it for any situation. It's kind of darker colors. To me, the mushrooms are kind of a fall theme thing. I think the green tones and some of the browns and things you're fixing to see are very indicative of fall. So I just think this is kind of a cool piece of decor to have added in somewhere. We're just going to go through and rub that transfer on. And you can see there, you can actually see where there's a difference in height in the planks on that hat box. So I just rubbed straight over them. I did not go back. I will sometimes go back with like a X-Acto knife and run it down those cracks so that those will actually lay into the crack. I didn't really want that here. I wanted them to lay over the cracks. So I have not gone back and it may naturally end up kind of splitting there because there is a little bit of a gap. But I wasn't forcing it when I was creating the piece. So rub that all down. I had to kind of work on it. The wood had a texture to it, so it's sealed, which makes it easier for it to grip, but there was still a little texture, so we had to kind of work over the textures to get it to stay down. Go back and burnish it, make sure it's all stuck down good. It was down. It stuck very well. Then that same bronze transfer had some of these not little, they were bigger leaves, and I thought that would be kind of cool to bring in a different color green, kind of break it up, make it look like there's different types of plants kind of arched over this scenery that we're coming up with. It's not just the one frond that's hanging down, fern frond. Say that 5 times fast. That was a good one. Burnish that one down. Then there was one more that had like a lighter tone to it, and it actually did very much look like it was kind of layered up and over. So it kind of gave a cool effect. This was just me piecing together little bits and things here and there. I wanted it to look different. I wanted there to be lots of textures and lots of things. We were trying to use different types of supplies all in one project. Now we're going to use the Millets pages from Iron Orchid Designs. And honestly, this step, it's okay. It really wasn't necessary. It didn't add a ton to the project. They kind of got covered up in the long run. I didn't really feel like the use of the orange was as bold as I had hoped it would be. But I left it in. You can see it. We're just going to rub a couple of transfers up that little side. This is before I really had kind of the finality of the composition in my head, like where things were going to go. You can see the mushrooms are laying everywhere. I literally poured every mushroom on that mold because I was just not sure what I was going to use where. But I did go ahead and kind of trim these down. I put them down. It just added a little bit down there. Nothing too spectacular. It gave it another background to the foreground that we're going to create here in just a little bit. So we're just going to take our time and rub those transfers on. Again, the wood has been sealed. It still has a texture. It still takes a minute to kind of rub it on and rub it down. We're going to rub each of those 3 on there. Got the lighter green one down there at the bottom. I almost covered it up. I wasn't super impressed with it, and I was like, no, I'll leave it alone. Put the orange one on. That was the next one. And then the last one, the green one, I didn't show putting it down, but it gave us a different tone of green. So now we're going back. We're going to figure out where we want to put these resin castings. Now I'm just kind of shifting them around. You're not going to see my husband's hands this week. He was doing his own thing while I was working on this and working on getting out of town, and we just had a lot going on. So just kind of laying the mushrooms out, trying to decide what I think about each one of them. I ended up really wanting to have like a large family of them over there in that empty space. And they do look like they're floating. So this is kind of hard to imagine how this is going to turn out. There's those leaves that I had from the oak leaves and acorns mold. I was trying to figure out how to bring those in because I did want not just the mushrooms to be dimensional, but I wanted the leaves to kind of have some dimension to them as well. And it's also still a little hard to see because we still haven't finished up what we're going to do with the tree. So, yeah, I ended up not loving that. So, that little cluster of 3 didn't really work. Wasn't my favorite. Ended up getting booted from the project. Okay, so now we kind of have an idea of what we're going to do. We're going to lay down a couple of the ones on the wood side. Making sure to get a good layer of that quick bond, or that tight bond, quick and thick. And see, those other transfers are just kind of peeking out from behind, so you'll see here in a little bit. They're there, but they're not really a big part of the subject matter. Make sure we put plenty of that quick bond, or tight bond, quick and thick. I don't know why I keep mixing that one up. Go ahead and coat that up real good, because that wood, again, it's got a texture, so you want to make sure it's got enough grip to it to hold on to that wood. And I'm just kind of putting the staple pieces in place. We still have some work to do before we do too much more. I did start out painting those leaves with one of the alchemy paints from Fusion, and I loved the paint. I actually loved the color, but the effect I was trying to create was not working. So I went back and painted them. This is the Fusion Bayberry, and I went and painted the whole leaf with the bayberry. Actually, there's 3 leaves. All 3 of them got painted with bayberry. It's a very deep, it's a pretty green. I really like this green. It's one of my favorite Fusion colors. I've used it on furniture and it is gorgeous. It's got such a regal basis to it. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a nice green. And paint that second leaf up a second time. And then you can see that one at the top. I haven't put a layer of paint on it yet, so we're going to go ahead and paint that one next. And that resin paints up really easy, especially with the Fusion paints, because again, they're primer, they're paint, and they're top coat. And you guys can go into the description box below. I've got my website listed, the shop-ah.com. The link is down there. Click on that. You're going to see all of my Fusion inventory. I have another box of the paint coming next week. It'll be in, I think, Tuesday, and that'll fully stock me back up. I had some sweet Pickins paint delivered this week, and I'm waiting on IOD to restock their transfers. That was supposed to have happened last week. It still hasn't happened as of yet this week. I've been watching even on this cruise to see if I could catch it, because I'm so depleted on stock from IOD. I have all of the Christmas stuff, so if you're still thinking you want the Christmas, grab that. We're going to add the conservatory to these leaves just to give them some depth and dimension. You really can't see the details of the molds with IOD until you add the second layer. Like, that is my favorite thing to do, is to add another layer to the molds. When you put one color on there, you guys have seen it now in this video twice, actually 3 times, because you're going to see some dimension change on these mushrooms too. But right now, see how the red is flat? The leaves look flat when they're just laying there until I add the conservatory. The door on the trunk that we've added to that background, very flat. There's a ton of detail in that door you're going to see here in a little bit. So you guys, be sure when you sit down and use these molds, you're committing to not just one layer of paint, but you need to go through and kind of be ready to put some of these details in too. They need to be dry brushed, or, you know, I like to dry brush because I think the dry brush hits the high points and it makes them stand out and look so much better. Okay, now the pine cone from Paint Couture, this is the chalk paint, so it kind of grips. It kind of goes on, if you dip your paintbrush and then you kind of dry it out, it almost goes on similar to like what us women deal with as far as like a blush or an eyeshadow. It kind of goes on like a dry, almost like a dry powder, like a contour. So you can kind of use it for some shading. So I'm using it down the stem of the leaf. I'm using it kind of down the veins in the leaf, just to add and make that the center section of the leaf look really deep and have a lot more detail to it. So you can see those leaves are popping so much better with the extra layers of paint added in. And I am not an artist, guys, like not an artist. If I didn't have things helping me, I wouldn't be making projects this easily. Okay, so now we're going to use the Fusion in Woodwick. We're just going to do a light coat over the trunk of the tree. We want the divots that we left from the barnwood plank stamp to still show. And you can see that's going on. You can see the little black spots. And when you're up close looking at it, you can see the detail, and you will see it in the reveal at the end. But you can see now I'm going back with that pine cone in the chalk paint again. And I'm just dry brushing over the woodwick and the coal black. And guys, this clay, the air dry clay, is still damp. I have not allowed it to dry. I literally sat down from start to finish and I just worked on this all together at one time. Nothing was allowed to dry unless it was hit with like a, it was hit with a hairdryer. So air dry clay doesn't really dry with the hairdryer. That's not going to affect it. All right, so here's where you're going to start to see some of the detail of the door. I'm using that pine cone. I'm painting in, it has like 3, I believe, blocks where the pine cone or where the wood of the door is kind of standing out, making it look like a door. So that's what we're doing now. We're adding in that pine cone chalk paint from Paint Couture, leaving the hinges black, leaving there's like a little, almost like a metallic looking trim going around the door. We're going to highlight that later. This is where we pull out the, what is this one called? I can't think of the name of that gray paint, but it's by DIY. I totally just drew a blank. Sorry, guys. The gray DIY clay-based paint. I use that for that stone. Now we're going back and gluing on the leaves. I'm going to go ahead and attach those. And y'all are seeing this thing now is like coming to life. It's got the brown. If you see, you can see right there, I did the woodwick kind of back down that little seam between the two pieces of air dry clay and added in to make it look like there was like a little ridge like trees have. Now we're going to go back and add in the mushrooms. Yeah, no, that little cluster of 3 just, it wasn't jiving. Add that Type Bond Quick and Thick to the mushrooms and stack them on top of the tree. Make sure they're good and coated. And I did kind of like the tilt. I thought that kind of added just a little bit of a look to it. Add on more Type Bond here. And that mushroom actually wasn't even a full casting, so it was just bits and pieces. Okay, got all that done. Cleaning up a little bit. I'm gonna go in, I believe, and add the last. Oh, nope, we're gonna get into this step next. Okay, so the grapes mold from IOD. Oh no, we are gonna go ahead and add those in. I thought so. The grapes mold from IOD. Truth be told, not my favorite mold. I am not a grapes person. I don't have that type of decor in my house. I don't really do a lot with fruit. But this is one of those times where I'm going to show you how to use your mold in a way that's not what the sisters intended. Like, we're not going to make a grape situation for this little layout. We're going to finish gluing down those mushrooms, and then you're going to see what we do with the grapes mold, because I thought this was pretty ingenious. And you can do it with the stamp too. They have a grape stamp. So if you want to use this to do the same thing, you can. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some cornstarch just in a couple of the little bumps or divots of the grapes mold. We're going to smash that air dry clay into that. And we don't need all of them. I just was trying to get like solid, pebbly looking chunks off the grapes. Then once we get through and pressing those really well, and I just was kind of pushing the clay up in there. It did not have to be perfect. This is going to be kind of a messy project. But now we're going to peel them apart. And those are going to become the stones underneath the little doorway. And see, this is where I was talking about how that little crack beneath the mold is going to be a problem. So we're going to go back and fill that in with some air dry clay. You'll see that happen here in just a second. I'll go ahead and keep pulling those grapes apart. And I did pull them apart, like I pulled apart single pieces, but I also peeled apart like 2 at a time. So I had little clusters of stones, similar to what you would have stepping stone wise at your house. Kind of the look we're going for. And yes, I could have just balled up little pieces of clay and rolled it through my hand, but this kind of gave us some unique shapes that were just kind of cool to have. So this is where I go back and look, and I'm like, that little dip is going to be a problem. So let's fill that in. So we smush the air dry clay down in the crack. Fill it in real good. And I did kind of like run my finger with some water into it so that it like took the shape of the space it was filling really well. And it was nice and smooth. So when the stones go over it, they end up, they take really well to what's going on there. So this is where we're going to go ahead and paint those stones. And again, they're still wet. Like I didn't wait for them to crust up and dry or anything like that. I mean, you guys are watching this. It's been sped up and it's been cut in some places, but it's all done in one night. Like I sat down and did all of this in one sitting. Just gonna paint those up. Then we're gonna start using that Titebond Quick and Thick, and we're gonna put them down just kind of one at a time, kind of forming a little bit of a little pebble ledge underneath that doorstep. So that it does not look like that door is floating. It's going to ground the door and make it look like it belongs in that space. And it's adding some texture. Like we're getting a really cool effect with those stones being stacked up the way they are. It doesn't just look like a flat space. A little cluster of 2. There we go. Even put some of the little stones up around the mushrooms to try and kind of creep that up there. Okay, so now we're going to go back with Paint Couture in the color, I believe this was Ground or Grounded. It's the mineral paint, not the chalk paint for this one. And we're just barely going to dry brush over, there's like a tree branch that creeps up and around the door. And we wanted to give that some dimension as well. And I wanted it to be lighter so that it popped it off of that darker tree. Then we had this little weird empty space, and I thought that butterfly was going to be really pretty to kind of pull some of the yellows from the mushrooms up into the bushes and give it a little bit more color. so that not all the color is down below. We want to kind of draw the eye up. So we've got all this mushroom and the stones and the red in the bottom. Now we've got the butterfly in the middle, and we've got the lighter colored leaves at the top to kind of pull your eye up to the top. But the one thing that was bugging me is that tree looked kind of bare. And I didn't want to do like a rub-on transfer because, again, that air dry clay is still damp. And it also had a lot of different textures to it. And I was like, I don't know how a transfer is going to stick to that. So, plus I wanted some dimension. I want that tree to have more dimension. This hat box is like 1 inch or 2 thick. I mean, it's pretty deep. So I want it to stick out a little bit from the back of the hat box. So I'm making 2 little bugs in the specimens mold. Just 2 little small ones. I didn't pick anything big. Cleaning them up a little bit. Then we're going to go in with the coal black. And we're just going to give them a coat of coal black paint. Again, more just to seal the air dry clay so that it slows down the drying process and prevents cracking. But also because I didn't know what I was going to do with these bugs yet. I knew I wanted them on the tree. I knew I wanted some color, but I had no idea what color we were going to use until I found this. I had this amazing, I don't even know what it is. It was one of the Luxe Metallics. It was like a green. I can't remember what it was called. I'm going to have to look it up because it's one of those like random ones I just pulled. I had probably 40 paints sitting on the end of my little desk area I was working on, and I just picked up some of the ones that I liked. So I didn't have all the names of everything I was using. Now here we're using like a bath sponge from the Dollar Tree, and then we're just kind of plucking pieces off because the next thing I wanted on this was some moss. Because where you have ferns and you're at the bottom of a tree, you're out in a forest, there's moss. There's going to be moss growing on some of this, especially where mushrooms are. There's always a little bit of moss. So we're going to take the pieces of sponge, put them into a Ziploc bag, take that conservatory paint that we used earlier, just so we can kind of tie in the greens. I was looking at several different colors, and I was like, yeah, I don't like the basil from Paint Couture for this. I want to use the conservatory. So open that up. Dripped just a little bit of paint down in the bag, and then I mushed it around. Tried to get all of those little sponge pieces to soak up that paint as best we could. Guys, I love those bugs. Once they got glued on, I loved them even better. Or even more. I think they're so cute. It helped kind of draw your eye up the right side of that tree. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that looks, it was what it needed. I mean, is it not? What do you guys think? Would you have added the little bugs? Leave me a comment. Tell me. Does it look like, I mean, did the tree not look bare? Now, this was kind of fun. My daughter was here visiting with me. We were getting ready for this trip. I'm trying to get these things to dry because I need to finish the video, and every once in a while, a little gap in that baggie would happen, and this is after this. We were laughing so hard. But we'd have a little green piece of sponge just fly across the kitchen. So, kind of a fun project. I did split one just to kind of see if, like, the paint had gotten all the way through, and it hadn't. So I was like, okay, well, if I have to split any, I just have to make sure that I'm gluing down that little piece. So now we're going to use the Type Bond Quick and Thick again. We're going to use it to cram those little pieces down into the nooks and crannies along the base. And I will say they did not stick amazing this night. They were better. They were fine by the next morning. But this night I kept fussing with them because they kept kind of looking like they were coming undone. But we just kept walking our way up the tree, or up that rim, up that hat box, adding glue, sticking them down, tucking things in around those mushroom stalks. And I didn't want to cover those up completely because they had a lot of detail on the base of them as well. But I did want to, I want to ground everything. And I'm doing air quotes like y'all can see them. But I wanted to ground everything because you don't want it to look like your mushrooms are floating. Like, we wanted them to look like they were attached to the ground. Even though this is kind of a circular, it's a circular surface. So we've got to make sure it all kind of makes sense. finishing up adding in all those pieces of moss. Really wanted to fill in around the stones, around the mushrooms, ground everything. Y'all can see those transferred mushrooms we did are not really super substantial. You can still see that green one. He's not too bad. The orange was kind of poking out just a little bit. You really can't see the one that's down low. I ended up gluing a lot of stuff over the top of it. It wasn't a very amazing mushroom to have picked to put in that little spot. It was okay. So we finished kind of filling in some gaps and holes. That's where I was asking my daughter. I was like, would you put one here? Would you put one here? Does this look okay? She's 20. She's fun. She has lots of opinions, and I appreciate them. But you guys know I like to have my family kind of involved with my projects, so I ask opinions frequently. I ask you guys frequently, like, what do you guys think of this? You're starting to see this come together. What do you think? Now we're taking a little bit of gold Rub and Buff, and we're just putting it over. I'm just barely putting the least amount on my finger, and I'm tapping it on the hinges, tapping it on that little pull that's on that mold, just to kind of pop those out. I wanted you to see them. And then I was like, I really like this gold. We're going to make this on the top of the mushrooms, kind of pop. So those mushrooms have this like little seed looking speckled stuff on it, and I wanted you to see that. I wanted to make that stand out, so adding the gold. Would you have added the gold? Does that make a huge difference with what you're seeing? Like, I really thought it made it pop. You can kind of see it right there. See how flat the ones on the right look, and see how much dimension the ones on the left have? Here's the final reveal, guys. What do you think? I did go back and put some clear wax over everything because we were using so many different paints, and we had all of this stuff that needed to be sealed in. So it's all been sealed with clear. See, the leaf is standing out. The mushrooms are popping out. That fern is looking amazing, taking up the space that we needed it to on the left-hand side. The extra leaves have given it some more color and some more dimension. That butterfly is added in more color and pulled your eye up. That green hue on those bugs was just awesome. I love the little stones. Who would have thought to use the grapes mushroom or the grapes mold to make little stones? So cool. I can't wait to put this in my shop and see how it does. What do you guys think? All right, guys, this week you're going to like, comment, share. Share this out to anybody you know. Make sure you're inviting your friends to watch the content. I am really enjoying this. Subscribe and be sure and click the bell so that YouTube will notify you each and every time I post a video. And you guys, I'm going to go wrap up my time with my girls, and I cannot wait to see you guys again next week. I hope y'all have a blessed weekend. Bye, guys.